Shuttle A friends, welcome back to the pond. My name is 0x Hacker Friend, Kekistan's top hacker. Today we're going to be going through the Wifinetic box from Hack the Box. It's a very simple and easy box that went straight into retirement. I'd recommend it as a good one for beginners to build confidence on. There are very few steps involved in the compromise, and they're all pretty straightforward. To grab user.txt, the attacker must first find an FTP share with anonymous access. This share contains a tar backup file, within which one can find both a username and a password. Using these credentials, in combination with SSH, results in a foothold shell as the net admin user, and you can grab user.txt. The privilege escalation was the hardest part of the box for sure. It starts by noticing the strange things going on with the wireless network interfaces, such as an AP being created through WPA supplicant. There's also a monitoring interface, which is strange to find on a normal box. Enumerating a bit farther with LinPs, we can find Reaver through the capabilities section. Reaver is a WPS password cracking application. Putting two and two together, we can then use Reaver with the monitoring interface and the access point interface to crack the WPS password of the access AP. And using this password, we can log in as root and complete the box. Alrighty, let's get right into it, friends. Starting off with an nmap scan, as we usually do, with sudo for a stealth scan, sc for script enumeration, and sv for service enumeration. And then this will run for a moment, and we will wait for that to come back. Turns pretty quickly. Sometimes it'll take a long time depending on what there is to scan and the scripts that need to be ran. From this we can see port 21 open through FTP. The default scripts enumerate that anonymous FTP login is allowed, and it enumerates these files on that share for us. There's also a bunch of other stuff that's not really applicable. And then we have it finding SSH. SSH we can't really do anything with until we find an SSH key and or credentials. And then strangely, there's an port 53, open, which is usually for DNS and it's showing as TCP wrapped. That could be something to investigate later. First, though, we should start with the low-hanging fruit. So we're going to go into the FTP server. So FTP and just the IP of the server we're attacking. And then you pass the username as anonymous, emus, and we're in. And we can use ls to list the files. What I like to do, since there's not that many, I'm going to do prompt, which turns off the interactive prompting for downloading each file. And then we can do an mget and a wildcard character, and that will get all of the files in the share and transfer them back to our host attacking box. Then we can exit out of that FTP share. Going through these files one by one, we've got mitigate, open, wrt.txt. Not much in here. This just talks about some Wi-Fi settings and setting things up, and DHCP, DNS routing. Basically nothing here we can use, so we can move that over there. We've got PDFs, which we'll come back to later if we need to. We've got a tar file, so we will extract this tar archive and see what's in there. Do this with tar-x and f, and then pass the name of the archive, and that will extract it for us in the current location. That gives us an Etsy folder. So this leads us to believe that it is a backup of the system we are attacking, of the Wifinetic box. So we can go into that Etsy folder. Ooh, that's my Etsy folder. Sorry, bear with me. Tilde, if for you don't know, is your user's current home directory, so you can use that as a shortcut to access locations. And then we go into the correct Etsy file. And here we can see a bunch of different stuff. We see a PSWD file. This is good for getting usernames, so we can cat this out and see what's in there first. We see a net admin user, so we can make a note of this for later. I'm just going to demonstrate with cherry tree real quick for now. And just add a node notes, and we'll make a note of the net admin user. Boom. Alrighty, and then we can move this over to our documentation tab for later if we need it. Alrighty, so then we can look through this file. One thing I like to do when there's a bunch of files to look through is you can use a grep command and then -r for recursive. And then, so that'll recursively grep through all of the files in the directory. And then we can do -I for case insensitive. And then the string we're going to search for. So we're just going to search for pass. Pass is a good string to search for. It'll find password, stuff like that. So doing that, we find that in the config dropbear file, there is, or excuse me, the config wireless file, there is a option key, very unique password 1. So this is very suspicious and worth checking out. So we'll head over there to config wireless. We'll just do it this way. And then cat out wireless. And we can see that it's configuration for what looks like wireless devices. And we see our password down here, very unique Wi-Fi password, is shared between Wi-Fi Net 1 and Wi-Fi Net 0. So it's a good case of password reuse. So combining this password with, combining this password with the username we found, we can then attempt to SSH into the box. It's always a good idea to attempt any kind of CRED password combinations you have in password spraying attacks, because you never know when password reuse is going to be a thing, and it's an easy win that doesn't require much work to find out whether or not it is the correct path forward. So we will do SSH netadmin at 10.10.11.247 and get that password that we found in the config wireless file from the tar backup archive on FTP. And it shows that we can log in. ls shows that we have a user.txt file. Let me make this a little bit bigger here. All right, then we can grab user.txt, and the foothold is done. Now, the privilege escalation was definitely the harder part. The user foothold was pretty simple and straightforward. Probably wouldn't take very long to get, even for a beginner. For the privilege escalation, I always like to run some basic manual enumeration, starting with sudo-l to list the sudo permissions on the box. Sometimes this will require a password, sometimes it doesn't. Whenever you have a password for a user account, it's always a very good idea to find this out and see if there's anything you can run as sudo, because that's usually the correct route to root and a quick, easy win. In this case, we cannot run anything with sudo super user permissions on the Wifinetic box. The next thing I like to check is set UID permissions that are on files. So type F for file, so finding files. And then with the permissions of /4000, so this is the SUID bit set. So that means that when the file is ran, it will run as the user who owns the file. And then we can do /dev/null, 2/dev/null. So this will pipe all of the error output, which is the second. Number 1 is standard in, to the dev not null location, which is on Linux, basically a black hole, and it will just delete anything sent there. So running that command, we do not find anything. I think I did it wrong. That should find things. Oh, because I did not include the base directory on the find command. So there we go. Now it finds some files that have the SUID set. None of these are out of the normal. How you'll know that kind of is just through experience. You see the same things over and over and over again, so you know there's nothing there to really be exploited. So at this point, I like to do my automatic enumeration. So for that, I like to use linps. So I'll head to the temp directory, and we need to upload it. So to do that, I already have a copy of linps, but if you didn't, I'll demonstrate. You can just Google it and download it from GitHub. Is Google linps. Oops, I've got my proxy on. Wait for it to load. I don't know why Google is taking forever to search that. And then we get the linps from Carlos Pop. This is the correct GitHub. Always make sure you're downloading the correct things when you're running things on hosts. You never know. If you don't know what the code does, you could ruin a lot of things. So, where is So the way I like to do is you go just back to the main page, PsNG, and then they just have a release section over here. And then you can just download linps.sh. We'll grab this, move it over to our tools folder. And then you can see I already have it, but I'll replace all. It's always a good idea to grab new tools when you're in an engagement because you don't know what'll be updated and what new things you'll be able to find. So then to host this file, I'll just use a Python simple HTTP server listening on port 80, just so then I don't have to specify the port. Then over here, we can use a curl command targeting our own IP, 10.10.14.11, which on Kali you can find up here in the top right conveniently. And then since it's on port 80, we don't need to specify the port. And then we'll just do linps.sh, and we'll output it and save it to linps.sh file. Then we can see that goes through, and we get a hit on our Python server. So then we need to chmod, change the modifiers, add execute permissions to the linps script, and we can run linps. And linps is going to take a little while to run. It does a huge amount of enumeration on the host, finding loads of things. While this is going on, I usually like to open a second shell and look through that shell and do more manual enumeration. So let's do that now. I'll minimize that. And SSH admin at 10.10.11.247. Then we can grab our passwords, demonstrating the usefulness of keeping notes. And eventually that'll log us in. So let's check. There was a bunch of mentions of wireless devices in the files we found, like this migrate openwrt and the wireless config file. We originally found the password for the netadmin user in. So one thing that would be good to check is the wireless or the interfaces. On Linux, we can do that with ifconfig command, and this gives us all of our interfaces. Here we can see the hack the box tunnel interface. This is what we're accessing the box through. We've got the local loopback 127.0.0.1. So it's the loopback when it wants to reference itself. It uses that. And then we've got monitoring 1 interface. This is very strange to have a monitoring interface here. We've got a WLAN 0, a WLAN 1, and a WLAN 2. So we've got 3 WLAN interfaces open. So that's pretty strange to have a monitoring interface and then 3 WLANs open. Going back to the linps, which should be just about done. We can close that. We don't need it anymore. We can start kind of scrolling through this. Don't got anything system information, just gives us the operating versions. Sudo version gives us that. It might be open to, I think it's a Baronet attack, something like that. Likely not the case here. We'll find out later though. Just got unmounted file systems, environment variables. Sometimes in here you can find passwords, stuff like that. Configuration environment variables, kind of stuff like that that'll help you progress. We've just got the exploit suggestion. It's doing probable. It's probably not, but we can check that as a last case. Baron same edit. Here, this is the sudo vulnerability I was just mentioning a second ago. Usually these are a good last thing to check. They're not usually the correct route in hack the boxes, but every once in a while they are. Scrolling down, got the exploit suggesters just telling us more information. Is it a virtual machine? Yes, stuff like that. And then we've got processes, crons, timers, services, and sockets. This is a very good place to look for processes. Since we're trying to escalate to root, we should always have root in mind. So we can try to find processes running as root. We got a bunch of them. Doesn't look like anything that we can really use. One of the really good things to look for when going through here are the wildcard, the little star characters, because that can often be exploited to root when the process is ran. Down here we see something really interesting. We see it called the root is running WPA supplicant on WPA supplicant conf on WLAN 1. So we had seen WLAN 1. What WPA supplicant is it allows the creation of wireless access points using basically Linux and just the wireless interface cards in like a laptop or something. So what this is doing is it's creating a wireless access point WLAN 1. So we can reference that, copy this line because this might be useful into our notes for later. And since the box is named Wifinetic, that's kind of another hint that the white path has to do with Wi-Fi. Keep scrolling down. We don't really see anything. Nothing in our user running crons that we can see. Service, system timers. Nothing really in sockets. Sockets listening. Not usually the route to exploitation. That's usually more advanced stuff. DBus. Nothing really interesting there. Network information. So here we can see the DNS. And here we see the interfaces again. So if you didn't find it manually, you could find it through this. That's why I like running linps. It tends to find everything if you look through linps hard enough. So we've got the WLAN 1. So this is the WPA supplicant process running as root, creating the access point. Then we've got the MON 0 interface again. We got active ports. We got that 53 and 22 listening. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Users information, nothing. Super users, nothing. Just kind of scrolling through here, saving a little bit of time. Because keep going, nothing really interesting yet. The other key thing to enumerate for the privilege escalation is the capability section. Right down here, hidden on the Linux or the linps output, you can see user/bin Reaver. Now, as stated as the introduction, Reaver is a WPS, wireless protected setup password cracking tool. WPS is very susceptible to brute force cracking attempts. It's a depreciated technology, shouldn't really ever be used. As we'll see, it cracks very quickly. So this should alert us that something's going on with this, and is a key part of information to escalating to root. So that's what we really needed to find in there. So then if we do iwconfig, we can check out those wireless interfaces again. And we've got the monitoring interface, and we've got the WLAN 1, which is what we're trying to attack, which is got the SSID. So this is like what you see when you access a Wi-Fi network. It's name kind of OpenWRT. So that's kind of like what we were seeing before about OpenWRT wireless network. So that's another hint of the route to go. If we do reaver-h, we can get an example of how to run the command. So we can do reaver-i and then the interface, which is the monitoring interface. So we know that's MON 0 from looking up here at the interfaces list numerous times. And then -b is the base station. So this is just the MAC address of the wireless access point we're attempting to attack. It needs that to know which packets to capture and try to crack and to associate. So coming back up to our command with iwconfig, we can see that is right here under the access point variable. This is essentially the MAC address of the wireless access point. So then we can put that in there, and we'll do VV like it demonstrates for very verbose output, just so we get extra information. Hit enter, and we can see just how quickly it cracks the password. And everything it's doing, it gets the beacon frame, it tries the pin, it gets all the other information it needs, and then it cracks the pin here in 2 seconds, gives us the pin, and gives us the PSK, the public shared key for the access point. So we would be able to use this to access the access point, like on your phone or something like that, if that's a situation that you were in. In this case, we know that the process is running as root, and there was already password reuse on the netadmin user between SSH and their wireless configuration. So it's very likely in my mind that password reuse is still here, and that this might be a way for us to get root on the box. Testing that out, we just do switch user and then dash to switch to root, and we'll enter in that password here. What is real and what is not, enter that in, and we achieve root. And then from here we can grab root.txt, and we have completed the box. One other thing I do want to note is that in the home directory there are a bunch of users. I believe this has to do with the port 53 we saw and the DHCP DNS through all the other outputs. I think that one of the intended ways through the box is that you take all of these users and you use that as a user list for password spraying the password we found. However, out of this list, you're not going to find any hits, and then that just leaves what is left is root, and then root is what the password is associated to. I kind of skipped that step when I did it originally because in my mind it just made sense the process was running on root and to try the root user first. I hope you liked that video, everybody. Stay safe, have some fun, and keep learning. Shot away. Until next time.